Gurjeet Singh, former ambassador to the African Union, I put out on Twitter today, and I always get in trouble on that, a picture of Jawaharlal Nehru with Nasser, reflecting in a way their role in shaping non-aligned movement. People said, why are you bringing in Nehru? But I was just giving a reminder that before Prime Minister Modi in 2014, there was Indian foreign policy as well. And I looked at, the kind of role that Mahatma Gandhi played in inspiring an entire generation of African leaders, all the way from Jomo Kenyatta to Nelson Mandela. Would you agree in a way that that represents, in a sense, continuity with change? That this is a continent which had strong relations traditionally with India, and we've in a way rediscovered it and put it right on the global high table. So credit to Mr. Modi, and credit in a way to those who had first built these relationships in the colonial age.
Brought Africa into the Bandung Conference in 1955.
That's right.
We were the champions of Africa in the non-aligned movement in 1961. But those were essentially combination of developing countries. Where Mr. Modi deserves the credit is that he put Africa at the top of the priority and said, I will bring you into a global organization, which nobody had the gumption to do so far. Africa's permanent membership of the UN Security Council is a distant dream. But this dream was realized under the Indian presidency and in Bali, when Senegalese President Macky Sall, then AU chairman, reminded Prime Minister Modi of his request in writing. Prime Minister Modi said, you wait, I will do it. And we did it. I frankly, though I am a supporter of Africa, was skeptical even till yesterday that how far will we be able to go. But this consensus building with courage, I think, has been amazing. And for the first time, Africa is on a global high table where they will be able to present their Pan-African positions as equals. They will not be spoken to. They will speak with the big people.
KC Singh, the last takeaway that seems to be common is what this economic corridor does. And in the years ahead, we'll wait and see where this corridor goes. But potentially, as a lot of you have said, it's a game changer. What to you is the biggest challenge to get, you've got the Saudi Arabian leadership here on a state visit, but India, Saudi Arabia, UAE, countries which you know well, coming together. And do you see that actually happening, or do you believe it is just a dream at the moment, but a great vision to have?
Look, it's not difficult to implement, in the sense UAE and Saudi Arabia have the funds. Mm-hmm. The only problem will be the last bit, which is Israel, because the line from Saudi Arabia will go through Jordan and then you reach the Mediterranean at an Israeli port. Israel under Netanyahu, unfortunately, is imploding. He's not behaved properly with the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. He's got a very fragile coalition, and there is internal turmoil which is churning in Israel. Now, if that sort of thing delays it, that's a different matter. My impression was this may not go through because the Americans have been pushing Saudis to normalize relations with Israel. The Emiratis have done it. The Saudis haven't done it. The Saudis have got preconditions that till Israel behaves with the Palestinians, gives them what is due, etc., we will not normalize relations. I thought till that is done, maybe the Saudis will say we'll not enter the corridor. Mm-hmm. It may still happen, because if they have not normalized relations with Israel, how do they allow a corridor to go through? But the interesting thing about the corridor is it's not just a railway line. Mm-hmm. It's got a pipeline with it, which is going to carry green energy. Now, that is a signal to Russia. Mm-hmm. You're driving these countries, you're providing them a market in Europe. Mm-hmm. They, at the moment, the Saudis and the Emiratis are exporting most of the oil to China and India. So they are again reconnecting the Gulf to Europe through green energy. And it's also going to have a digital, it's being called a green and a digital corridor. Mm-hmm. So there will be job creation opportunities for UAE and particularly for Saudi Arabia and then Jordan. When this line runs that way. So it's yeah.
So you don't rule it out. You believe this is a potential, it's not just a pipe dream, to use the word, but it is something that is realizable in the next decade. Am I correct?
It's absolutely doable because the Saudis have the money.
Okay.
And 2 weeks from now, what has not been mentioned, 2 weeks from now, President Biden announced that an investment forum is meeting in Washington. No, this is not the only corridor they're looking at. They want to replace China from the Pacific, from Africa, from Latin America. They don't want the Chinese roping in. There's so much debt which has been accumulated. And linked to that is the reform of the multilateral lending institution, which is World Bank. And that's why both IMF and the World Bank head were here. World Bank only has about $200 billion. So they want to augment that. They want to see where does the money come from. And Bagga was being interviewed today. He said it's going to be the corpus of the World Bank will get augmented. Then they want to bring in private sector. So they're really reinventing the way the multilateral lending takes place. Chinese are lending through their banks at banking rates.
Right.
The World Bank will do it at concessional rates. So it's a big battle which is going on, which will be fought all over the place, and Chinese would be very worried today.
Will the Chinese be very worried today, Mr. Kanta? You know China better than most. Do you believe the Chinese will be worried by what they've seen today?
Well, Rajdeep, Chinese are clearly not comfortable with the way deliberations are taking place in G20. That partly explains absence of President Xi Jinping in G20 Summit in New Delhi. But these are ideas which are being developed, including India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, whereas BRI is a reality. Notwithstanding numerous problems Chinese are facing, there'll be sort of downsizing of BRI, but as a project, it will continue. We need to sort of come up with more substantive, detailed alternatives to BRI. I think a good beginning has been made, but much more work remains to be done.
One other question which has been in a way put to the future is climate change. There is still no commitment even in this declaration on climate financing. There's talk of it, but is the money actually going to be put in? And that remains a big concern of the global south in particular, that the West needs to walk the talk.
I'm sorry, is this a question for me? I
Yes,
didn't hear the...
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Well, look, when we talk about World Bank reform and the international lenders reform, that's a lot of what we're talking about is a labeling, concession or even grants to less developed economies to help not only mitigate the effect of climate change, but build an infrastructure, a climate resilient and renewable infrastructure for the future. And that also was a bilateral initiative that kind of hasn't gotten a lot of attention between our two countries, was to each commit to put in, $500 million towards, financing for this purpose. There was also the Biofuels Alliance. So I think the issue's gotten, attention in a number of different ways. Again, I think the G20's role is not as an independent actor financing things on its own. Its best role really is to reach consensus and common definitions and common goals on a number of very important issues and kind of assign action. Who should take the action? Well, the MDBs need to be a big player to take the action. We can do things bilaterally and regionally to take action forward. The G20 itself, with the exception of things like the Finance Working Group on Health or something, they don't really do a lot of action within themselves. That's not the purpose, and it's probably not the best use of an organization like this.
So it is, in a way, an issue for the future, one of the critical issues that will determine the success of countries to come together to, in a way, build a better world. The talk of one family, one world, a more harmonious world, must start somewhere with climate change as well.